Hey there, internet friends. Trevor Starkey here with another episode of AC Discovery, the weekly show where I sit down and discover some anime or some comics, and or maybe both. This week, I'm going to be going over American Alien, Max Landis' love letter to Superman. Now, American Alien is broken out into 7 episodes, and there are some interstitials in there, but I'm going to kind of focus on the 7 episodes. Each one really looks at a defining moment of Clark Kent's life in his journey to Superman. Overall, I love the book. There's some great stories in there. The art is fantastic. You have 7 different artists, one for each episode, and they each give kind of their own flavor and their own flair to Clark in this journey. Spoilers ahead for the entirety of American Alien. So the first episode is Dove, and that's where we see a very young Clark Kent learning how to fly, learning that he has this ability. But he doesn't get it in like a romantic, like he just looks up at the sky and starts hovering up. No. We open with him midair, freaking out with his mom attached to him, 30 feet above the ground. And he doesn't know how to control it, he doesn't know what to do. Suddenly Martha loses her grip, he miraculously starts to go down, grabs her, but still doesn't really know how to control it, but everybody ends up safe. It's all okay. I love that it's presented as like a puberty-esque kind of thing, a little bit like his first erection or something like that. He doesn't know what's happening, he can't control it, he can't figure it out. He's just trying to learn what his body can do. And we get to see 2 sides of how the Kents are kind of dealing with his superhumanness. At school, he's definitely trying to keep things under wraps. He's just trying to be a normal kid, but he goes out with all his friends to a drive-in movie one night and, again, shoots up into the air, completely out of his control. Somebody says, must be a gas pocket or something like that. But then on the flip side, you do have people that know that something is amiss with him. The Kents have taken him to the doctor, and even at the end of the episode, when Clark is just kind of stuck hovering midair and he can't get down, Jonathan brings in a friend of his who has an airplane, says, my son's up there, I need to do something. And the guy goes along with it. And so you get this lovely small town America kind of like everybody knows everybody and they will protect each other. And then it closes, of course, with Clark kind of starting to learn that he can control it, and excited as you would be if you were like an 8-year-old kid who suddenly learned you could fly, and he joyously talks about taking his family on flights when he's older and can like just carry them and take them around the world. It's awesome. It's delightful. The second episode, Hawk, has Clark learning to fight and somewhat testing the limits of his strength and his abilities, or discovering that he's got new abilities. When this, for lack of a better term, gang comes into town and starts killing a few people in Smallville, Clark's best friend Pete, who knows that Clark has these abilities, says, you got to do something about this. Like, you're the only one who can. So Clark tries to confront the people, tries to stay a pacifist at first, but they shoot at him, and he gets angry, as you would if you got shot. In one of the probably most graphic moments in the whole series, his heat vision blasts the arms off of one of the opponents, leaving the guy bewildered with just a couple stubs where his arms used to be. And again, we get to see that there are people that know Clark has these powers, has these abilities, is different, and they're protecting him. Small town America, they're not turning him over to the feds that are coming to investigate this killing spree. And we also see that Clark is vulnerable. This is not a Superman who can only be harmed by kryptonite. The bullet leaves him bruised and bloodied. He can be hurt. Up next we have Parrot, which was probably my favorite episode of the series, really, where you have Clark on his way to the Bahamas because he won a sweepstakes, but his plane goes down. Fortunately, it goes down in the vicinity of a yacht owned by none other than Oliver Queen, billionaire playboy Oliver Queen. And everybody is on the yacht celebrating Bruce Wayne's 21st birthday, even though nobody's seen Bruce Wayne in like 14 years. But Clark comes aboard with the pilot, and everybody in their drunken stupor thinks that this guy's got to be Bruce Wayne. And Clark resists at first, but then he kind of ultimately says, sure, I'll be Bruce Wayne for a day, why not? He's paired up for a lot of this episode with Barbara Minerva, who, after I did a little Google search, I learned is also known as Cheetah in the DC universe. And I definitely did not catch that on first reading. On first reading, I saw Barbara and saw the red hair and said, is this Barbara Gordon? Is this setting up a Clark Kent and Barbara Gordon kind of relationship? But I was mistaken, so yay comic books. But the two of them throughout have lovely conversations. She sees through the Bruce Wayne facade. She knows he's not Bruce, but they have a lovely kind of back and forth, finding each other kind of as these ships passing in the night, so to speak. You also have one of the funniest sequences in the entire series here, where Deathstroke makes his way aboard the yacht on orders to kill Bruce Wayne from Carmine Falcone, but the poison he snuck into not Bruce Wayne's system doesn't do the trick, doesn't kill Clark like it should. Clark instead just gets a little drunk and is just kind of bemused by the entire thing. So Deathstroke, master assassin that he is, tries to do it the hard way and slashes at him with the sword, which just breaks on Clark's apparently tough skin now. And Clark just flicks him away and he goes flying off the yacht, not to be heard from again. There's also a very real moment within this episode where Clark is out looking at the stars and screams at the stars, angry at whoever left him behind, because he doesn't know the tragic origins of his tale yet. So he's just out there screaming to the stars, and it's beautiful and haunting and touching, and a very touching moment. And despite the immediate connection that Barbara and Clark have, they realize that it's a temporary thing, and the next day, back at the dock, they kind of go their own separate ways. Clark back to Smallville, Barbara off to become whatever she will become. And then we have a final moment away from all of this, over at the League of Assassins headquarters, where Son of Bats is being trained by Ra's al Ghul, and shown some footage from the yacht of the imposter, and Bruce sits there looking at this image of Clark and says, "Who are you?" The next episode, Owl, has Clark meeting a whole bunch of people who are going to be kind of influential in his life. At the onset of the episode, he's talking to his mom about how he's got to go meet this guy named Louis Lane. Obviously, will be Lois Lane. And he's tasked as a now intern for the Daily Planet to cover this groundbreaking event where three titans of industry, Oliver Queen, Bruce Wayne, and Lex Luthor, are going to be meeting to kind of discuss the future. He's immediately recognized as not Bruce Wayne by Oliver Queen, and Oliver Queen invites him on his helicopter for kind of a private one-on-one interview to catch up with this guy who snuck aboard his yacht years before. We then get our first meeting of Clark and Lex, where Lex really kind of defines who he is. We get a great quote that effectively acts as Lex's thesis statement. People aren't important, not as a whole. Everyone runs around like they've got a big S on their chest for special, but the actual gift of genius, of work ethic, of aspiration is rarer than a white tiger. That's why you see people throughout history rising above the masses. Those are the changers. Those are the doers. You are not important. You're not. I am. And then that speech is immediately followed up by Lex dropping Clark off basically at the kid station so the big boys can go talk, and Clark meets Dick Grayson, who is on the way to becoming a Robin, it would seem. He's clearly being tested and trained by Batman, and Clark and Dick size each other up. And Dick presents the notion that Batman, if he is real, because this is still an early point in the Batman's career where he's kind of an unknown boogeyman, but Grayson says that if the Batman is real, he needs a counterpoint. He is the embodiment of fear, and you need hope to balance that. He is darkness, you need light. Setting up, of course, the dichotomy of a Batman and Superman dynamic. Then lastly, you have a Batman versus Superman dynamic when Batman tries to attack Clark and figure out what's going on with him, and Clark beats him handily, but Superman uses his tricks and gets away. But not before Clark discovers that Batman is real and Bruce Wayne. So I loved how it immediately sets up the dynamic between those two characters. Next up in the arc, we have Eagle, which is effectively the moment that Clark decides to become the Superman. We open with him playing superhero, but he doesn't have the costume that we know of as Superman. He's kind of running around. He's running around in Batman's cape, and he's also got a helmet and flight goggles and like a bulletproof vest with the big S on it. But it's early days. He's stopping crime, but people don't really know what to make of him. We see Clark and Lois at a diner, kind of discussing what to make of this guy. Lois doesn't know what to make of him. Clark says maybe he's just a nice guy with a lot of spare time. And then Clark is really put to the test as this giant beast thing starts wreaking havoc downtown. And Clark meets all the emergency responders kind of on site and says, what do you need me to do? How can I help? And he flies in overhead. The emergency responders are clearly out of their depth. Even Superman seems a little bit out of his depth at first. This thing kind of punches him. He gets it, grabs it, throws it into the water, which shrinks it back down into the human-sized thing that it was. Clark gets the guy to talk. The guy says that Lex Luthor made him this way and set him loose on the city. So Superman takes him, angrily busts through Lex Luthor's window, and then Lex Luthor just becomes all arrogant and disappointed that, oh, you're just an angry young idiot. I thought you might actually be something I'd had to worry about. I thought you were a Superman. And he just gives Clark like an ultimate talking down to, like, you can't do anything. You can't take me in, because then people will want to know who you are. In fact, you came here, you trespassed on my property, I should have you arrested. And then we see Clark, dismayed, talking with Lois again, and Clark is saying, what does it even matter? Who cares what this guy is? What is his end game? And it's a lovely, like, almost slip kind of thing. And then Lois says, I've changed my mind. I want him to be the nice guy with free time that you said he is. That's what I want this guy to be. And so we cut to Lex back at his office, asking if his window's been repaired, and we see the newly repaired window, but with paint sprawled all over it saying, sorry about your window, see you real soon, XOXO Superman, and then he's got the Superman insignia on it. So we have the moment that he became Superman. And it's powerful, and it's archetypal, and it's that we create our own worst enemies imagery. Lex created the Superman. For the penultimate episode, Angel, we take it back down a little bit to a more personal story. Some of Clark's Smallville friends, Pete and Kenny, show up in Metropolis for kind of a weekend in the city with Clark, catching up. And immediately we see this big emblazoned Superman mural on the side of a building, establishing that he's out there. People know who he is. They even joke about the idea that Clark is really only using glasses as a disguise, because people often tell him, hey, you look just like Superman. But he's just a mild-mannered reporter, so nobody suspects a thing. So the three just have a guy's night out, catching up, talking about all of the things that Clark is doing now, and kind of his progression from guy in goggles to the Superman. And this episode is in many ways showing that no matter how big Clark is getting as Superman, he's still Smallville's own Clark Kent. And Pete's worried about him. Pete's worried that he's doing this on his own, so he even suggests the formation of, effectively, the Justice League, making allusions to The Flash and Wonder Woman and Aquaman. And Pete kind of asks Clark the hard questions of what he's really trying to get at there, because it seems like he's just trying to be a showboat. And they get into a fight, and it's that moment when these two best friends are there, and one of them is going to call the other one on his bullshit. And Clark gets pissed off and runs away, tries to fly to the moon because they were joking about if he could do that earlier. Turns out he can't, but fortunately for him, some members of the Green Lantern Corps were keeping an eye on him, so they kind of protect him out there in space. And in their conversation together, they mention that he's Kryptonian, which is the first time Clark has ever heard this, so he now knows that there were other people. He knows where he's from now. He wants to know more, but the Green Lanterns just kind of send him back to Earth, black him out, and Pete and Clark have a nice little moment reconciling atop Clark's building. Lastly, we have Valkyrie, where Superman goes above kind of being the nice guy who does good things and becomes the Earth's protector, more or less. Lobo comes down. He's trying to destroy Metropolis and presumably the rest of the planet. And the two have an epic fight, both with their words and with their fists. Lobo tells Clark more than he's ever known about Krypton, about who he is or where he's from. But he says, I'm still going to kill you anyway. And Superman says, nope. They fight through the city. The Daily Planet covers it, sees Superman doing all of this stuff to save the city. Superman throws Lobo back into space. And then Clark is discovered in the rubble because he was trying to get the story. So he's all beat to hell. Because again, this is a Superman that can be hurt. And the series ends with Clark there in a hospital bed, recovering, Lois there beside him. At the beginning of the episode, it was mentioned that Clark had said, "I love you" to her for the first time, and she didn't respond in the way he might have liked. But here she says, "When you were hurt and I thought you were dying, all I could think about were your last words, and I love you too." So we have the two of them sharing a tender embrace as they try and figure out what comes next. Clark in more ways than one. So yeah, lots of great imagery throughout this, a lot of great moments that are going to stick with me as kind of like my introduction to a comic book Superman. And I get that it's its own self-contained story, but I think it does tell a really good Superman story from kind of the zeitgeist version of Superman that's out there. So kudos to Max Landis and all the artists that brought this to life. I'm sorry there's not more. I want to keep diving into the stories that he wants to tell. But alas, we don't always get what we want. So if you've read American Alien, let me know what you think about it in the comments below, or let me know if you've got some other stories or runs worth checking out. I've been your host, Trevor Starkey. You can follow me at SnarkyStarkey on Twitter. Like, share, comment, subscribe, all that fun YouTube stuff. And until next time, from here at the Trove, treasure your friends.